Welcome to People I Think Are Cool. I'm your host, Liz Reed, one part of the art duo Cuddles and Rage, and author of the graphic novel Bites of Terror. And this is my podcast where I review cool, interesting, creative people. Today on the show, we have Jen Gubicza. I have known Jen for a very, very long time. I met her at a craft show years ago, and I fell in love with her style, and she was kind enough to like our style. So then just like everything combined. If you aren't familiar with Jen's work, she has a shop called Zooguu, and she is known as a designer. She has this wonderful series of faux taxidermy pieces. They range from real animals to fake animals, I guess mystical animals. And I love her work. And she's also working on a little something special right now that she alludes to in the podcast. And oh my gosh, you will need to go, if you're listening only, then you'll need to go to the People I Think Are Cool YouTube and check out some of her samples that she holds up on screen. It is adorable. She is a crazy, crazy talented woman, and I'm so thankful that I got to talk to her like right in the middle of COVID, while we were still quarantining. And we're still quarantining now, but I just got my shot. Yay. So that's one step closer to going back to film club. We'll see where we go from there. I'm just excited to actually see people in person. Maybe even smell them. If that's gross, maybe too much. Maybe I won't be smelling people, but you know what I mean. Like when you hug somebody and you get their scent. Anyways, enjoy this awesome chat with my friend Jen Gubicza. I think the best place to start is to talk about Zooguu and Friends. Because I've been on your Instagram show. I mean, I don't want to go quotes show, but it is. I mean, are you treating it like you're like a show? Because you are doing it like weekly, pretty much.
I was doing it 2 to 3 times a week for like 4 weeks, and that was it.
Oh, overkill.
And so I use it in quotes because I just called it my fake talk show. I was like, hey, do you want to be on my show? For a while because so I signed up for a lot of virtual events this year. So those virtual craft shows also had various requirements of like going live on Instagram for certain times. And
like requirements, like you have to do this to be in the show.
Or strongly suggested. It was like, we want you to do all of these things because this will help you sell your stuff.
Yeah.
And also we want to be able to promote events that are happening. So it was like, we want to have stuff that we can talk about in our marketing plan. So if you guys do Instagram live events, then we can talk about that and say this person's going to be live at this time. And so I signed up for all of these things. And then I quickly realized that I don't like being on camera by myself. But I had already...
It does get awkward.
It's awkward. So I signed up for 5 events in 5 different states, all on in the span of 10 days or 2 weeks or something. And then I had to do a pre-recorded intro to my company and talk about it. It was just 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. And it took me 5 hours to do it because I would look at it and be like, no, that's wrong. Or, oh my goodness, I would mess up and just pause and stop and not having someone else to talk to. I realized it is not my strength. So I quickly turned that into a show where I just talked to other artists during that time. And so that was how
fun because you get to discover people. And I mean, we can depend on the algorithm, boring, or, you can put the effort behind it. But I think when, your friends bring new faces to you, that's just where the perfect marriage happens because you kind of have similar tastes already. So have you just been seeking out people who are also in the same virtual events as you or reaching out to friends?
You know what? I didn't reach out to people in the same events except for one, which was coincidental. Because I just went to my friends who I knew I would have a great conversation with initially. And I was like, I know we can talk. And that was also, it made me miss talking to people at shows. So it felt like they were just my booth mate for the day. And, we were chatting, you know. Like,
I miss having a booth mate.
I know there's something nice about just being able to talk to other artists that we don't really get this past year.
No, or I really think about like you don't get to meet new people. So that's been my kind of big thing, like with this podcast, is like, this is really the best way to meet somebody new and not lose those social skills.
Yes, I admire that so much when I've been listening to your podcast, is like, you've gotten to meet so many great people just by being like, hey, do you want to talk to me for a half hour, 45 minutes about you and let us learn about you? And yeah, it's really been inspiring, like listening to your podcast as well. So like,
that's so sweet. But I love your show. I was shocked. Like, I didn't realize you were doing it until I saw like Eileen on it. And I was like, oh, two of my favorite people just chatting. Like, this is great. And I think what's even more important is it's real talk. Just about, you know, especially in that interview, just talking about where she was as an artist, and, you know, it's not all like rainbows and kittens right now. It's we're all kind of up and down. I mean, do you seek to go there when you're in the conversation, like making sure that it's authentic? Or, I mean, I'm sure it changes per guest, like just getting the vibe on it.
Yeah, you know, I like to have those kind of conversations in general. Like, you know, when I meet people or when I'm talking with my friends, I really like to get to know people. And so like asking those questions and like getting to know like the things that they like and the things that they hope to do next, I think is always, I just love those kind of deep conversations about like how you got started, why you're doing what you're doing, and like how you're doing right now and how you're struggling and where you want to go. I think those are always, I don't know, it's more meaningful. And then I feel like we don't always take that time to pause and talk to people in our lives in that way. And so having that kind of format, I feel like I got to know every single one of those friends better from doing that, you know. And that to me, like now I feel like I understand them and their work even more than I already did. So
yeah,
that's
no, it is true, because even if you're like talking at a show, like everybody's on a clock. So either the person you're talking to is like, all right, you need to wrap it up, or vice versa. And it isn't like unless you go out to dinner later and you're tired and exhausted, you kind of get to know them, but not in the same fluid motion of like talking like we are right now. Exactly. And I think what I love about your show is that it's okay to say that you're doing okay. You're not doing great. You're not doing spectacular. I mean, although it seems kind of like rude to say that in the middle of a pandemic, that you're doing like fabulous. But it's accepting of like, I'm not that great, but let's talk. Yeah, for sure. Because nobody's had a great year. Like in their, you know, that people may have had a great year financially or had a, you know, like something may have been great for them, but like overall this whole year, I feel like everybody in the world has had some kind of not great year, you know? Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So I think it's okay to say the things that are going well and then the things that aren't as well. So, and it's just different.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, you know, especially artists who just want to put up the perfect image on Instagram or whatever social media thing, like that's been my goal. And we were talking a little bit about this before I hit record on all my machines. That just kind of like letting go of that perfection and just trying to get stuff out there. You're always somebody whose work like looks perfect. So have you suffered from any of that, like dealing with imperfection or feeling that way?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, I don't look at it at you know, I do the same thing where I'm like looking at old pictures that I've posted and I'm like, oof, you know, like the lighting is terrible, or, you know, I've just thrown that. I have like a table with some whitewashed wood on it where I like throw things down to take a photo, and, you know, everything is just like, there's nothing perfect going on over here. It's, but there is that pressure to present a curated gallery on Instagram for people to look at. And I sort of threw a bunch of that out the window with like posting drawing and painting stuff, which is like new to me and like I know is not at the level where I would want it to be, but I'm posting it anyway. And I'm like doing a daily painting project and like, you know, I'm losing followers, but it's fine.
Oh, it's so weird when to look at the numbers. Like I've just decided that like my numbers haven't really changed unless I do like a big collaboration. My numbers kind of stay steady. But at the same time, it's not about the new people. It's about the people you have and that you've become friends with and that you like genuinely check on. Like I was checking on a friend last night because like, you know, the time that we're talking right now, like the riots were going on in DC, which was like terrifying, you know, and we're like right outside there. So like a lot of the people that we've met over the years in the local markets, like they live in DC. So I just was like writing and checking in on them. You know, you're kind of the people that you follow and that follow you back. You're a family. It's not so much like a client to, you know, artist relationship sort of thing. I don't feel like, you know, the people that have been with you the longest, it goes beyond that at this point.
Totally. And I also think like I was talking with Elaine yesterday about the numbers game and like how we did that Drawtober thing together where we did the daily drawing every day in October, and Elaine and I made a list of things we wanted to draw, and we would just every time I just kind of wish the numbers thing wasn't so visible at the top.
Well, weren't they going to change that? Like, I thought that was a thing.
So did I. And it's one of those things where, like, rationally, I am aware that that does not mean anything. I am aware that, you know, all of this stuff is irrelevant. It is about the people that really interact with you and comment and like and just, like, support you the whole time. But when you post something and then just like click back, the number will change and you see it. It refreshes like when you change from a post to your regular page.
Oh, I haven't checked it that closely. This is a whole new level I don't know about.
Well, it's something that it like catches my eye just briefly, and so then I notice the number change, like live, and I don't necessarily know at any time exactly how many followers I have, but I will see the change and note from if it goes up or down, depending on what I've posted. And that thing is just like psychologically, it's like, I know that it's meaningless, but for some reason it still bothers me. And it's like, you know, I wish it didn't.
Well, I mean, I think that's just human. You know, like, you always want to be up, whatever up means. But then when you reach that next level, you're always going to want more. There's no end to success. There's just hitting goals and making new goals.
No, because it's like, what does that even mean? And then that gets into like the deeper of like, what does success even mean?
That's why we have self-help books, you know, 50 a year or 200 a year, because that subject is just so subjective and ongoing. It's almost like what the culture views success is at that time. Yeah.
But it's also like, because what success means to me is not what it means to somebody else, or, you know, so and you know, you're saying you look at my work and you think it's perfect, whereas like I see the flaws, you know, and that's just like, but no one else does, you know.
It's true. Yeah. I'm just trying to lower that bar this year. I don't know if that's everyone's trying. Every year you try and raise it. This year I'm trying to lower it.
And just like being more confident in the work that I'm putting out there, you know.
Yeah.
And just like trying to have fun with it. And like, I know the painting, the stuff that I'm doing now, because I'm a beginner painter, is not good now, but if I do it every day, next year I'll be better. And, you know, that's just the way that works. So I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep getting better at something else, you know?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of confidence, with your piece that you did for the New Mutants movie.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So oh my gosh! I just hit play on something. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So this music just went off in my ear. Jimmy got me the AirPods. The AirPods. I'm a grandma. The AirPods, which are great, but if you touch them, it sets off different things. Anyway, having a piece or being commissioned for a piece in the New Mutants movie, was that just a huge boost in confidence? Because that is major.
That was huge, but also the timeline on that was like, it was a huge boost of confidence 3 years ago.
Oh, like, that's how movies are so annoying. Movies and books take forever.
I know. So like when I'm listening to your talking to other artists about like books and movies they're working on, I'm like, yeah, because it's like, in a couple of years I'll be able to tell you about a thing I did. But yeah, that was an amazing opportunity to work on that movie. And that was just huge because we have friends that we've known for a while. They own a fabric shop in Cambridge, Mass, which is local to us, called Gather Here. And they work in film and television. Virginia Johnson is a costume designer, and Noah DeBril is a prop master or assistant prop master. And they are this amazing couple that own this small business where they sell fabric and teach classes. And they've just been friends of ours for a long time. We met them because they bought work of ours at a market a million years ago, and we just hit it off. And so Noah has been putting my stuff in the background of movies for a long time. So there's like every chance that he gets that when he can just, if there's like a room with a kid's room, he'll throw one of my toys on the bed or something, just like subtly sort of like place them if there's an available spot to have them, which is pretty great. And then when the New Mutants happened and there's a dragon character in the film, Lockheed the Dragon, Noah showed the director like these dragon guys. So, and the director was like, "Oh, she's great. Hire her." And that's how I got the job, which is pretty amazing. So that went through a couple rounds of revisions of just originally the puppet was supposed to look like super handmade, like made from ripped up clothes that she had sewn together, and just really kind of like a patchwork puppet. And we sort of I did a round of that, and then they were like, "Oh, why don't you just design it the way you would design it, instead of like taking direction from like putting patchwork pieces together?" And I was like, okay. So I designed a toy, because at one point it was going to be a toy, and then they were like, "Oh, we love that toy, now make that into a puppet." And that's how that went.
Wow. When you were, I'm assuming you had to sign a contract. Did you have to include in there the number of revisions and go that deep into it?
That's what I did, just because, so I was a designer before, like a graphic designer before I sewed for a living. So I was familiar with doing like rounds of revisions and contracts and working with major companies and studios through the design firm I worked for. So I sort of had that experience of like 10 years as a designer creative director to fall back on. So signing NDAs and contracts was not that intimidating to me, just because I had done that before. So I had built in, I think, 2 rounds of revisions, so that they used exactly the number that I had given them, right? So and that is sort of like kind of like a tip that really helps, to be like, you get some revisions and you can use them, but like then it makes them use them wisely. So they really have to think about it, and then they have to show everyone involved in order to make that decision. So it's not like you can work so far down the line and then they're like, "Oh, well, now we're showing the director or the president of the company," and then everything changes and goes back. It's like, if you only get 2 chances, you make those chances count. So
no, that makes sense. I had a client where I just wanted to like please the client, because it was a big deal for this particular project. And so often like people think that we do stop motion. They're like, "Oh yeah, you do stop motion." And I'm like, "No, because that takes time." And so like mid-project, they were like, can you animate this? I was like, not in the way that you'll think that I will, but I'll do something.
So they changed to like, they wanted an animation. They just changed the whole scope of the project halfway through.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, I mean, I feel like I'm not as green now. So I can say, will you change the fee? Because that's a lot more time. But yeah, that was just one of those times where, you know, the particular client was just so amazing that I just didn't push back. But, you know, from what you're saying, it's like they're used to pushback. Like, that's what you do. You have a conversation about it. You don't just shut the door.
Right. And you can always like, if you give something, you're like, well, this price includes, and that's what you build in. So I built in for the cost, I built in 2 rounds of revisions in case we had to go back to square one twice. What would that cost? And so that's that. And then if they decided to take it further, I would have been like, okay, well, this is what another round of revisions costs. And it's not personal. It's just like, you know, if I can't get it in 2 rounds, I'm guessing I'm probably not the right one for the job anyway.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
Yes. Yes. You are so business minded. Like, that's why I have Jimmy step in. As he has the business mind, and I'm just like full of feelings.
Well, I mean, I have that because I've failed a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I've been the one that revised a logo 17 times when I was 22 years old and was like, I'm never doing that again. You know, it's like, but it's like when you do that, like I've said yes before and regretted it. And so it's like, you know, you make that mental note of like, this is what I don't want to do. I don't want to have this situation again, you know?
Yeah. No, that's so true.
Yeah.
One thing that you inspired me on recently, and I don't even, you know, you said this in passing, but I just thought it was so cool. When we were scheduling this interview, you're like, I can't do Mondays because I have, or I don't know, whatever day of the week, because I have my like creative business meetup. I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm trying to like connect with a small group of like women to do the same thing, because I just feel like knowing once a month that you'll be able to kind of like dish with each other is just so therapeutic. How did that get started? Was that a pandemic thing, or have you always had this group?
We've had it for a few years now. So a friend of mine, so we have like in the Boston area, we have the SOA market, much like Eastern Market or something in DC, where we have like every Sunday there's an outdoor market that has 80 to 100 artists at it. And that's for every Sunday from May to October, so 26 weeks. And a bunch of us who had done that market sort of, I mean, we have friendships. You have like your coworkers or whatever. So when you'd see each other during the week, you'd like say hi and chat, and these become your friends and coworkers. And a few years ago, a small group of us decided, and I was, you know, pretty early on in the group, but it was started by my friend Allie, who decided she wanted us to all just get a little bit better at what we're doing and support each other. And so she started it and called it Monday Morning Small Business Brunch Club. So we met every Monday for brunch, and we ate at a restaurant in Boston and supported, you know, gave them a table full of 20 people every week for that. And it just was, we did it on Monday morning because we could talk about the shows that we did that weekend. And then we could sort of plan what we wanted to do next and just support each other. Even if we were all at different points on our journey, we could get together and be like, well, this is what worked for me, or, you know, what do you, like, everybody has different knowledge that they bring to the table. And then we would sometimes have guest speakers that would come and teach us about something. And then they started to have, they branched out into a thing called Indie Biz Academy, where we did a conference. So we've done a couple conferences in January, like the last couple of years, except for this year, obviously, where we had workshops on photography, on marketing, on wholesale, on just all of the art business things. And so it was like a 2-day conference that just started from this small group of people. And then when pandemic happened, we just continued to meet via Zoom. So we still do our Monday morning, like from 10 to 12, and we like just get together and chat and talk about life stuff and business stuff. But we're all coming to it from the perspective of being creative small business owners.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
How do you manage a 20-person Zoom?
Well, I think there's like 40 something members total, but every week probably between 6 to 10 people show up. So it's never like unmanageable, and people will pop in and pop out. Like somebody will come for like, a half an hour to check in, or somebody will be there, they'll come in later. But yeah, it's usually never overwhelming, and people are pretty respectful about letting other people talk. And
that's good.
So,
yeah, I'm on Reddit a lot, and there was like, I don't know if you've ever do you ever go on Reddit for?
Not, it's like if I'm looking something up and a Reddit thing happens to have an answer, I'll go and like.
Okay.
But
so I had to stop. I had to delete the app from my phone because I was addicted. I was addicted to "Am I the Asshole?" Because it just makes you feel better about yourself because people share stories about if they were a jerk or not, and then the Reddit community chimes in, and you always feel like, well, I wouldn't do that, so I feel like a good person today. And there was a story on there about like a mom group, and like all these moms like shamed these two like childless women. And, they went back and forth and like, am I a jerk for this? And I was like, oh, I wonder if that happens when you get a collection of, I don't know, 10, 12 people who meet weekly that you have to vote them off the island.
I don't think that's ever happened where we voted somebody off.
That's good, because that just seems terrifying. It seems like that's not a group you'd want to be in anyway.
Yeah, I feel like the people who are coming to this and are coming regularly are coming because they really like it and they like the people involved and feel like there's good information. So we also have like a Facebook group that's just always going. So that's where like that's why I'm saying we have like 40 something members, and it's kind of like it used to be the rule where you would have to come to a meeting in person once before you were allowed in the Facebook group. And I guess that's still a rule, but we just haven't had any new members in the last year because we haven't met in person.
Yeah.
But we sort of wanted to like invite people to come join us, share a meal with us, and like see if they liked the group. And then you could be in the Facebook group. And that's where, people talk every day in there and will be like, oh, did you see this thing about, this show? Or like, hey, my customer sent me this message. How would you guys deal with that? Or, and sort of to get feedback from the group. But yeah, no, we haven't had any serious drama. That's
good. No, I didn't want you to say like, yeah, we had to kick somebody out, but that's the only thing that makes me nervous about heading up a group of people is like, you don't want it to become like you're like some office manager, which I'm probably overthinking it again, trying to not do that.
Yeah, I think because there were those sort of like gateways in of like, people get invited who like would fit with the group in terms of like, are you passionate about your business? Like, do you have insight to offer? Like, then you'll love the group, like,
yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like we talk about other things really. There was like a book that, or a group that sort of broke off to do like a book club kind of thing, but that started in the group, and it was like, who wants to sort of like, read this, these kind of books and like talk about them. So and then that was decided, oh, well, we'll just start our own other little thing off of this page because it's not exactly related.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
With having conversations with so many different groups, like really in talking to you, I was like, okay, I want to talk about staying connected with people because I feel like that's such a strength of yours. Between all these conversations, is there a theme from the artists that you talk to throughout just kind of managing this time of isolation, creativity, and not having the shows that we typically go to make income?
Theme. I think there's kind of like a theme of like, I don't know, making it work somehow, or sort of, we were hearing the word like pivot a lot this year, or and like those kind of things. It's like does my head in to like hear the same words over and over. But I think people sort of continuing to persevere and make it work despite the extra challenges has been probably like a good theme to get behind, or like for this year, I think. And I do know that like especially in the Monday morning group, like having each other to talk things over with has been really helpful, and having that support. Because then you're not just going crazy in your own place. You're like, well, there's at least some other people that are also like going through the same stuff, and kind of like the exact same stuff, because it's like we're all running a creative business and we all lost the same amount of opportunities, and we all have the same tools to work with to use those, and how can we like sort of help each other use those tools better.
One of my questions that I had written down was just, talking about making new designs. Because I can, from my experience, it's like very comfortable to just, listen to a podcast or watch a movie and just like make the same design that is going to sell every time, which is kind of like when you want to shut down. But then, especially for me, like the recipes, and for you, like the patterns of making a new design, it takes time and effort. And how do you, just even in a normal year, make sure that you're still pushing to make new stuff?
That is really hard, because it's a different brain. I feel like I'm like trading brains when I'm working on designing something new, or when I'm just in production mode. It's like, and I sort of have to feel it on the day. Like that's why it's really hard. Like I've been terrible at using like a planner or calendar and planning things out, because for me, I can't be like, next Tuesday, I'm going to design 3 new things, because next Tuesday, I might not be in the mood,
Right.
That kind of work. Like, usually I'm in the mood to design new things when I'm really busy doing something else, is like when I'm like, this is when I really want to work on the other thing. And so, I don't know, like I have on my list that I want 3 new designs by the end of this month. Mainly because I have people who have requested them. So that's often where I like get the new animals, is because people have been like, well, I would like to order this. Can you make this for me? And I'm like, yes, but not until January is usually the answer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that is like another lesson to be learned from, dealing with that like client basis, is if you stop what you're doing to take care of every order, you're not going to push forward the bigger thing that's going to keep your career going for much longer.
Yeah. And that's what, like, I know you've done books and stuff. So I'm working on my first, hopefully, book proposal, which like nobody's bought yet. I'm just making it because I want to do it and pitch it. But I started doing that, and I'm doing these like wire armature figures and doing that on the side. So that is a thing where I have this whole other group of people that are puppeteers that I've met through a friend. And so we then meet every Sunday afternoon, like to sort of set our creative goals, like not necessarily like running the business goals, but like a creative project that we would like to work on that we just don't have time for. So that group is like every week we set ourselves a goal, and then we check back in on Sunday and say, did you do the thing you said you were going to do last week? And then we all show each other what we worked on.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. You're like the queen of like groups.
Well, I only
big thing involved.
I only have a few, but like they need to be good. Like they, so it's like I have, and this is because I know that I will disappoint myself, but I won't disappoint someone else if I have a requirement to like show them the thing that I worked on. So yeah, so that's why, so I have a goal of getting the book to be ready to pitch by October. And so far, I mean, I'll be showing some sneak previews on Instagram, it's hard to know like what to show and what to not show. And then like Instagram is so weird because you're working on something in secret, but you have to still post stuff. But you know, guys, I'm really working on like bigger things that you just don't know about yet. Like
that's what gets hard when you're working on a book, especially because it can like take you a whole year. And they're like, "Are you alive?" Yes, I'm very much so alive. I just can't show you anything.
Yeah, and then like I'm writing and illustrating this, and I wrote a thing a couple of years ago that I've just wanted to work on, and then this year, when my friend Stacy was like, "Oh, hey, do you want to join this group of creative people that are going to work on their other project?" I was like, "Yes," and I will make my book this project so that I will get it done in a year. So I started working on the head for my character.
What? So is your book going to be like mixed media then? Or no, it's illustrated or?
Well, it's going to be like sets. So like wire armature figures in these little sets and shot like a picture. So this is like the character design for the Yeti character.
Oh my gosh.
And this is his little head. So,
so that's so cool.
I'll probably be doing like my goal this week, which I will meet, is to finish his body and have it be all like wired up. And I will probably be doing some like really horrible kind of like stop motion expressions on him and maybe posting something like that just as a little like, I'm working on a thing, you know.
You're just so inspiring. Like my theme with this podcast, and I feel like with my work this year, I've defined it as like just connecting with people, nothing more than that. And what you're doing through your art and through Zooguu and Friends and through all your groups, it just makes me want to go out there and just like collect clusters of people, to just stay focused and bond over, one thing or just life in general. Because, I haven't had, this sounds sad, I haven't had human contact in a very long time. And this always brings energy.
Yeah, and if you do ever want to come to like the virtual Monday morning group, I know you can't meet us in person when we start to do that again, but if you ever want to come to a virtual one, let me know. I'll send you an invite.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so we meet every Monday from 10 to 12, so yeah, let me know.
Oh, I will totally have to take you up on that. I won't be the creepy person without the video on in the corner. Like, that's always like, what are you doing back there?
Yeah. Maybe you can come and be a special guest, and we'll have you on. I'm like,
oh, that's so nice. I don't have to be special guest, but I'll take it if you throw it out there. All right, Jen, thank you so much for everything. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you so much to Jen for being on the show. Go check out her shop, Zooguu, and pick up some faux taxidermy. And also, isn't it really cool that she did a piece for the new X-Men movie? I mean, that's crazy impressive. I hope she gets to do more gigs like that because her sewing capabilities are far beyond me. I'm more of like, I have to sew a little bit for dioramas, but I'm more like, let's get that glue going. That's what I did for Bites of Terror when I had to make these little like tiny cult robes. It was all glue. I tried sewing and I was like, I don't have time to learn for this. So I'm going to have to hit her up for some sewing tips. Did you love how I just have a random itch like right in the middle of it? But go check out Jen Gubicza's work. I'll have the links in the show notes so you can obsess over her and find her on Instagram. And if she's still, I don't know if she's still doing Zooguu and Friends at this point, but if she is, go check it out on Instagram. I was on there, and she is really connected to the crafting community and has a lot of cool people that you should check out. Okay, at the end of every episode, if you've been watching, then you know that I recommend a movie at the end. And this time, I think when I was like coming up with ideas, I was in like a very feel-good mood. So it doesn't have blood, guts, or gore. I know, that's still to come. But I wanted to give you like a sweet, warm, feel-good movie that Jimmy and I just enjoyed. It's a documentary called Pick of the Litter, and it's playing on Netflix. Honestly, I don't watch Netflix that often anymore. I do more like Criterion and Shudder and Arrow's channel, and mostly like the Blu-rays that we buy. But I wanted some puppies, and I wanted them now. I really enjoyed it. And Pick of the Litter, okay, don't judge it by its cover art. Like, I feel like it's kind of like cheesy TV looking cover art. The documentary actually goes into a litter of puppies who are training to be seeing eye dogs. And some of them make it all the way to the end, some of them don't. And so you find yourself watching this documentary, getting to ooh and ah over puppies, and then rooting for certain ones, which just kind of leads to a whole new discussion, like placing bets while you're watching it, and then getting really sad when some of them don't make it. It's a great short, quick story. So if you're looking for something quick to watch at the end of a long day, go see Pick of the Litter. Until next time, I hope you guys have an awesome week. Oh, and by the way, like I've been listening to like a lot of like YouTube statistic things because I'm doing like more video for Cuddles and Rage. And what I found really interesting is that they're like, you gotta have a catchphrase. And then I told Jimmy, I was like, Jimmy, I gotta have a catchphrase for people I think are cool. And he's like, don't force that. So I'm not gonna force it. I actually like ran through some things in my head. I was like, stay cool, but I don't want to feel like a 90s after school special. If something comes naturally, let it be. But until then, let's not force it. Let's just be you. You be you, I'll be me, and I'll just end everything on have an awesome week. Bye, guys. It's kind of like the messages that I leave for my parents on the phone. If I am ever murdered and then they have to use that as my like dateline, she was a soft, loving person, and that it would not work. It would be very weird. I try to leave them the weirdest messages possible just to like, jazz up the day. I'm done. All right. See you next time. Bye. Stay cool. Just joking. Okay, wait, really stay. Be nice and kind and cool. All right.